A lot of these big matchmakers say like the real importance in matchmaking is that you really listen to the people. And I was like, no, I totally disagree. I think a good matchmaker knows when not to listen to you because you're not doing something that's good for you. You're not making decisions that have worked in the past.
Every day, we are blessed to interact with some of Colorado's most interesting people. On this podcast, Judaism with Altitude, we share their fascinating stories with you, and
we have a great time.
And welcome back to Judaism with Altitude. It is great to be here. We have a very special guest today. We have the lovely Erin, the amazing Erin. Thank you, Erin, for being with us.
Many of you might know Erin if you have been involved with our J Denver matchmaking initiative. And we are so excited to dive in deeper because there is just so much to learn here today. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
And yeah, I'm personally excited. Erin, I think, is one of the most fascinating people I know. I just learned something brand new about her 30 seconds ago before we went live. I thought I've known her pretty well. We worked closely together, but really an amazing, fascinating person, very inspirational person. And we're very excited to dive into a lot of different things with you.
Thank you. So I'm going to share the secret so that they're not waiting with bated breath. The thing that I just told Rabbi Wolf was that neither my husband or I lived in the US until we were 18. And that's one of the things we have in common. And he had no idea about that. So there you go. I'm not going to go into all the details right now, but if any of you see me in person, I'm happy to explain my whole long random journey of why I lived overseas. I was born on, my father was a school principal for the federal government. It's a federal public school system on military bases overseas. And so I was born in Seoul, Korea on an army base because that's where my parents' jobs were.
Yeah. You're our first Korean guest. It's great to have you.
Exactly. Everyone asked me, they're like, you don't look Korean. I was like, yeah, that's not how genetics works.
My daughter's technically from Israel, so in any application I say that she's Asian.
I could have, I think, chosen if I wanted to be Korean, and it's a good constitutional question if I could be president because a military base is technically U.S. land. So, okay, we're getting off topic already because that's how my brain works, but there you go.
Erin for 2028. Yeah, okay.
Amazing.
And your husband, where is he from, just out of curiosity?
My husband was born in Tehran, Iran, and he actually has an amazing story. Actually, he's spoken before for the Jewish Experience. He, after the Islamic Revolution, his family was basically there for 2,000 years. It's part of the Persian Jewish community since the destruction of the first temple in Jerusalem. The Persian community is very old. And they were forced to leave after the Islamic Revolution in 1979, and he was actually smuggled out. He has an amazing story. And we met in Los Angeles at a Shabbat dinner.
Can you tell us just a little more of how you got from there to where you are today? And then we will jump into our phenomenal topics.
Yeah, sure. So like I said, I grew up overseas. We did come back every summer. So there's a slight exaggeration because my parents were teachers. So we came back to the US, but I never lived here. And I lived on American military bases where we spoke English and paid in dollars, like a little town. Many people don't realize 50,000, 100,000 people on these military bases in Korea, Japan, Germany, all over. So that was my initial childhood, but I was always American and I knew I was going to come to college in America. So I went to actually a school called Claremont McKenna College. It's a small little liberal arts school outside of Los Angeles where and ironically, people ask me, so on military bases, some people actually in Colorado know this because we have a lot of rabbis from the Air Force Academy or different things. They're chaplains. So I did go to Hebrew school. There was Judaism where I lived, but on a military base, it could be an Orthodox rabbi, and the next one could be Reform, and the next one could be conservative, and that's just how it was. Then I went to college here. I spent my junior year abroad in Israel, actually at the University of Haifa, which was an amazing experience for me. I started keeping Shabbat pretty much fully when I came back, my senior year of college. And then again, my school was about an hour outside of LA. I moved to Los Angeles after I graduated school, and I studied economics and government. And I actually, if we get into later some of my matchmaker stuff, I always joke, I have very dorky economics jokes, but it's how I view the world, and it actually helps me a lot, I think, as a matchmaker. So that is in a nutshell what happened. We were talking about it before when you asked me kind of what prompted me, maybe, people always want to ask, say, how did someone end up religious? My brother also is a Orthodox Jew, which is kind of crazy. Right. And it's not common, let's put it that way. And my parents had kind of an explosive divorce after I graduated high school, that made me really, in a way, I don't wish it on anyone, think about what I wanted in life and a family, and like what are true shared values and the meaning of life and all these big things that the average 18-year-old maybe isn't forced to think about. But I mean, I guess I could have still not thought about them, but it brought it to the forefront of my life. And that probably pushed me to ask some big questions. And it definitely made me say, okay, I want to build the life I want. I don't want to, by happenstance, fall into a relationship, fall into a lifestyle because it's convenient. I want to build it. And that probably had a big influence in me doing some things. Sometimes it's, as I became more and more observant, it might have been a little bit uncomfortable, but I felt worthwhile.
Wow. So that experience, kind of the way that it opened up your eyes spiritually, religiously, sounds like it, yeah, had a massive impact on you, which obviously going through something like that, it could like tear someone down and put them, in a very obviously negative place, which I'm sure is, happens very frequently. But sounds like you took lessons from that experience and you shaped your life around that. Sounds like.
I tried to. It is, I mean, it definitely was hard, but I tried to use it as a framework, a prism by which how I want to view things and what's important and how to create relationships that I wanted and what are my true values. And then I got to find my own true values before I can look for them in a partner, that kind of thing.
Wow. Wow. Beautiful. Yeah. And that was around, you said, by the end of college.
Yeah, I mean, it was from leaving college on. Yeah. Yeah. And then I was, yes, fully observant when I left college.
Wow.
I can just imagine. And we have so many other things I want to get into, but I'm so curious about this of making that transition mid-college, meaning you have your friends there, you have your environment, and you changing within that environment without,
So I will definitely say my year in Israel was transformative. I was not in a religious environment per se. I went to the University of Haifa, but I actually always joke it was the best thing for me. So for those of you might shake your head yes at this, Rabbi Wolf, if you know me. But I always say if I would have went to the Hebrew U or was in Jerusalem, then I might have just taken a look at what people call the Orthodox or ultra Orthodox community and gone, wow, I don't know, that's not me. I don't see myself like those people, so I guess I'm not religious. Whereas if you put me in a less religious environment, I happen to have these roommates that were very traditional, not necessarily Orthodox. I had one girl, she actually literally taught me nuts and bolts of how to keep kosher in a really nice way in my apartment. Her family was like a traditional Moroccan Jewish family. And the guys next door in the apartment next door, I remember just them blowing my mind. None of them wore yarmulkes or anything. And they went crazy cleaning before Pesach. And I was like, what's wrong with you? What are you doing? Like, and then they gave me this whole like lecture of why it's so important. And, this whole, like in this very loving, non-judgmental way that helped ease me into actually practically observing Judaism. So you can have the ideas, but it is very true. Switching over your actual observance is quite difficult. And I guess Hashem actually just put me in that exact environment that would, in a very easy, loving, flowing way, support me. And I actually remember I was starting trying to keep Shabbat. Like some of these guys were, I don't know, they were going out to a nightclub or something. It was Friday night. And I was like, oh, maybe I'll go. They're like, no, you shouldn't. Yeah, as they're going out. But that's what I love about Israel and different kinds of Jewish communities.
Okay, so how did you get into this passion about matchmaking?
So I actually give you guys credit. So the way I wasn't really even involved with Olami until you asked me to be a business mentor. And I really enjoy that. And
Just really quick, would you mind? I don't think we've even established what you did.
so first of all, I'm in my mid 40s. I've been married 20 plus years now. And I am an entrepreneur. I run my own business. As I tell people, it's not kind of how I define myself, but I do enjoy it. I love the processes. I'm not going to get into the details of it, but basically I started and now run a business in the educational services sector. Thank God it's kind of exploded. It was started as a kind of fun hobby and to make money for sure. But when I moved to Denver from Los Angeles, my oldest child, I have 3 children, was very young. Daycare was very expensive. I didn't want to work 8 to 5. I actually kind of strongly believe it's something we could talk about later. I talk about it with the people I work with matchmaking, that it's very hard, especially if you live a religious Jewish life, to have 2 people working 8 to 5. It could be, it doesn't have to be only the man that's working. It could be the woman. I have seen it work all around. It could be all different kinds of jobs. I definitely work. I definitely make money, but just like the flexibility of life, it didn't work for my family. So I was home with my my eldest child, and started this business to kind of make a little extra money with my husband. And I actually always say I wouldn't have been able, it's ironic actually, because my husband and I in some ways have an extremely traditional marriage of where he really sees himself as the breadwinner. But it's not just financial, it's like emotionally within the relationship. So I say I would never have been able to build this business if I was actually worried about paying the mortgage, if I was actually worried about those things. But he always took that on his shoulders. So it gave me the freedom to explore different opportunities, to take certain risks, to not make money for a couple of years, that kind of thing. So I run this business, and now, like I said, thank God it's very successful, and it definitely adds to our life and enables us to do things we wouldn't be able to do without it. But it's not necessarily like how I define myself or where I get my like excitement and like joy of essence of life. So that leads me, actually, you asked me to be a business mentor to a lovely, amazing woman who I've become friends with. Shameless plug. We go back and forth about it because she saw her boyfriend in another event, but I say they got together because of the mentorship program, because that was the first time he ever talked to her. So at these events, I think I'm just a connector person, like in business, in life, friends. I just love it. I love people. So I think you guys asked me to be a matchmaker because I was always trying to set up these kids at our mentorship events. And then when you had the Eliza Ben Shalom event where you had so many people sign up for J Denver and didn't have as many matchmakers, so then you guys were, I think that's how it came about. I don't know, maybe there was something else.
Yeah, definitely. Your involvement in the mentorship program really just, it showed that you're passionate and interested, and
And we're like, we need Erin more involved in everything we do. And if you know anyone else like yourself, please connect us to them immediately.
Yeah, I've been trying. I just got you a great matchmaker.
Yeah.
That's true. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. Okay. More like that. Amazing. I guess, yeah, turning to matchmaking for a minute, would you mind just sharing, I guess, I don't know if you recall how long you've been at it, how many, kind of like what your process is, what you do, how many matches have you made? How many mutual approved matches? It's very impressive.
So just in life, years ago, I have made, not on the website, as one of a cute girl told me, live in the wild. In person, I made 2 matches where people got married. And those couples happen to be Orthodox. Ironically, this is a crazy story for another time. One of them is the match of the daughter of the woman who set my husband and I up. So it was like real karma of like being entwined in people's lives. So that I have on there. So on the website, I think when did we start? So it's been a few months, maybe 6 months, 7 months, something like that. I actually just looked last night. So I haven't had any engagements yet, but again, I joke, most of the people I work with, and that's who I prefer to work with, are secular people. So I'm not expecting that for a few years, because it's not like the Orthodox world where people get engaged after a few months. but I've definitely made a couple like serious couples on there just in a couple months. And I think I looked yesterday, I had like over 120 like mutually approved matches. Like, I don't know, is that a lot?
I think I mentioned that to one of the heads of the company, and I think it was, I think I mentioned it was 50. I thought it was 50, and he was mind blown at 50.
Oh, really? Okay. No, it's definitely more. It's
120 is pretty
well,
good.
120, but I don't know the exact amount. So,
I remember when it was 70
right.
at our matchmaker meetup, I think it was.
Yeah, so that was
Yeah.
like a month and a half ago or something like that. Yeah, so thank God some things came together. So mutually approved match, if people don't understand, on the website, that's when both the guy and the girl agrees. So that at least means, so if they're long distance, that means a phone call or FaceTime, or in person, that means that led to a date. So that makes me super happy that there was, maybe 120 dates, the equivalent of, because that's really building connection. I mean, that's what you want to build.
That's amazing. How does this Jewish matchmaking differ from the modern dating apps?
So I actually, again, I don't think you saw, I just sent you guys a video this morning that another matchmaker sent me. So the difference is dating apps are like this endless flow of people, which psychologically I think can be quite problematic. Of just always more people. And then the idea that I actually saw this morning in this video that is kind of crazy is the way people value what's attractive and different. In the dating apps, it appears that most women, let's say, are kind of gearing towards or being attracted to like 10% of the men. So we have this simultaneous problem in the secular dating world, especially I'd say above the age of 30 for women, where women feel like there's not enough quality, quote unquote, candidates. I would argue, and we can get into it, what they're defining as quality is not necessarily correct. Simultaneously, you have 90% of the guys kind of being ignored, or in my economic speak, being undervalued in the market. So you have this huge mismatch of people. I mean, again, this is where I'm going to get into my dorky economic stuff of like when you have a housing market and people need single family homes and they're only building townhouses, well, you're going to have a problem, right? So if you have this male, female, and there's lots of different reasons for it, economic, political, the way society values success, people's having numerous, let's say, sexual relationships that skew their view of who their long-term partner is going to be. But that might be a person that would have a relationship with a woman, but not be interested in committing with them, all different kinds of things. So, I mean, I could go on forever, but the real difference is, I think you have hopefully someone like me who cares about you. And I was just joking about this on Shabbat. One of the guys I work with, who was actually in a serious relationship, who actually brought the girl who was to my house also for Shabbat. We were talking about it and he was teasing me about being a little pushy with him or something. And so I was saying, a lot of these big matchmakers say like the real importance in matchmaking is that you really listen to the people. And I was like, no, I totally disagree. I think a good matchmaker knows when not to listen to you, because you're not doing something that's good for you. You're not making decisions that have worked in the past, obviously. So let's try to help you. So in this one, I was teasing him. This guy happened to told me he was adamant about only dating locally. And in my very nice way, I just sent him a match of someone else. And I was like, well, you can decline her. Obviously he didn't. So that kind of thing. Obviously I'm saying some of this tongue in cheek, I do try to listen to people. Yeah.
I mean, I would point out, because I've heard a lot of that, like a lot of people complaining that matchmakers, don't listen enough and whatever it is. I think the difference with you in the way you're able to pull off what you pull off, and I think something that anyone who's setting up a friend or someone should strive for, is that the people you're working with know how much you care about them and only want their best. Like,
I do.
oh, I mean, it's obvious to anyone who talks to you for 5 minutes, and they realize that. So, whereas if I'm just casually going on a website trying to match people up, and I don't really know them, never really talk to them. I'm sending them, and then they push back, and then I push them back. They're going to hate me, rightfully so, right? But you have a way where you're able to, share another perspective they didn't consider, which they will now consider because they know how invested in them you are. Which just kudos to you and any aspiring matchmakers out there. I think that's so important because again, I've heard numerous times of fed up people with matchmakers just send them people and they argue with them and and it's really off-putting to them. But you're able to pull off what you do because of your care for the person. So I think that's how you get away with it.
Thank you. I think that is part of it, but I also, so this is where I would also say like my economics background, it sounds so dorky and I joke, but so in economics, we would say, people say their preferences all the time, but you can see their preferences by how they actually spend their money. So if somebody tells me they want to save money and then you go see them, I don't know, getting $15 lattes at Starbucks every day and this and that. So it's obvious that that's not their actual preference, which is fine. There's no judgment in that. So the same thing happens in dating so I think this might be, I'm just saying one way I'm also like, just have a different perspective is I'm able to point out, it looks like this, just by looking at what you're choosing, this XYZ might not actually be your preference. And either I can work with you and start searching based on that preference, or do you realize that that's how you're making your choices of your preferences? And sometimes people don't, and that's not actually what they want based on off their values. So I think that I do think I have a different perspective, and it is true. I truly do care. And also I don't, if somebody says, this is a big thing, I think with men, and we can talk about differences between men and women of, if like, let's say physical attraction isn't a thing, and I'm not going to push them on that. I don't push on certain big fundamental essence things. And yes, I do care a lot.
Yeah. What's the most common mistake you think that people make when they're looking for a partner?
I think people have this idea that matchmakers are asking them to settle. Let's say if they're putting someone who's, let's say, outside their age range. And what I ask is to ask people to have a different perspective and paradigm. And again, with my dorky economic speak, I would call it like really not chasing after the ideal of what secular society has or money or this or that, but understanding what your core values are. In Hebrew, we call them midot, like character traits, and seeking that. And then in addition to that, being open to someone who might be, I quote unquote, call it like undervalued in the market, right? In economic speak, for whatever reason it is. I like in business called like a market arbitrage, like you got a high value item at a lower price because the market wasn't valuing that person correctly. So I was just talking to a woman about this today, and I said, I'm going to highly encourage you, very successful in business and so forth, to be open. Like, again, the core would have to be there of what you want in midot and character traits and hardworking, but this guy might be undervalued per se because he's a divorced, B age, C, the job wasn't what you envisioned. This guy has a job that you didn't necessarily envision in your partner, something like that, that at the end of the day might be externally, look like it's important, but yeah, as far as how someone relates to you in a relationship, be like totally irrelevant. So I think that's a mistake people make of men and women. The person has to have a master's degree, something like these arbitrary things. And again, if you look at what I'm listing, it's really anything that's closing your pool of people. Because my goal is to give you the biggest group of people to get you the most number of dates. Obviously I can send you more people. You're welcome to decline them, and I'm not going to get my feelings hurt, or, you see what I'm saying? But I think people make choices. I also think people, actually I had someone admit this to me, and I had actually never thought about it. There's one thing, if you feel uncomfortable with something someone has, like, I'll give you this example. If a girl is dating a guy that's, let's say, overweight and she finds him unattractive, you know what? If he's unattractive to you, you shouldn't date him, right? But this person expressed to me, I'm hesitant to date him that people will think that I'm desperate because I went out with this person. And I think men do this with women in looks. I think women do this to date a guy that makes less money than them per se. Like, they don't actually care. They're worried other people will care. Or that it will signal something to other people about their lack of value, which is not the case at all. They're choosing to find and date some amazing person who might not have certain characteristics that other people care about.
You're helping people focus on, instead of the externals, what's really inside and the things that actually matter. When society tells us and gives us these messages about what are important, and then you help them refocus to what's really important from deep within inside them instead.
I hope so. But again, I'm not devaluing, for example, physical attraction is very important. It's super important. I actually just saw, and I want to bring it up. I actually just saw a video from a speaker named Lori Plotnick, who went through the three, she's a famous Jewish woman speaker. She was like, the 3 questions you have to ask before you marry someone. So I actually wrote them down. She said, make sure you have to be able to say yes to these 3 things, that you have shared meaningful values. And she went into kind of a bit of what's a meaningful value, how you want your home to look, not just how many kids you want to have, how do you want to raise them? How do you want your home to feel? All these different things. She said, are you physically attracted? It's super important. I'm not going to discount it. And then she said, for women, she asked them, is this a man you respect? And for men, she asked them, is this a woman that you want to make happy for the rest of her life? She said, men want to be loved, but need to be respected. And women want to be respected, but need to feel very loved. So I do try to get them to focus on those things. But again, the bigger thing is not caring what other people might think.
Absolutely.
You know, you're a female attorney and you meet this awesome, great guy who's a teacher in public school, might make less money than you. If that makes you uncomfortable, great. But if you're finding it problematic because you think the outer world at large is going to make judgments about you for dating him, that shouldn't be how we make any decisions in life, right? So.
And I love what you said just about how, people have these criteria, these requirements that at the end of the day, a lot of them don't really matter that much. And maybe just on paper, or they think that they know what really, really matters. But at the end of the day, it has nothing to do with the quality of their interaction, the relationship. And I think that's probably a huge mistake that a lot of people make.
Also, you talk about Hashem putting you in the right place. So I joke, but it's the absolute truth. And I'm being honest with myself. My husband and I are very different. We have an age gap. He comes from obviously a totally different culture. I always say, thank God we met at a Shabbat dinner and spent a good bit of time together, because if he was offered to me as a blind date, I'm not sure I would have accepted him.
On paper, it didn't necessarily line up.
We didn't line up. And in fact, so I'm older, I'm dating myself. There were no apps then, but there was websites. We were both on the same religious Orthodox website and never popped up for each other because we weren't what the other one thought we wanted. True story.
Yeah. You get what you need, not what you want.
Right. So there you go. So I think that and in general, I would just say being as open and as possible. Everybody does have deal breakers. They're real deal breakers. We talk a lot about like politics. I have a whole theory of that, like politics for Jewish people are a whole different animal. So we shouldn't judge it the same way, or because we do have a bit of a mismatch of more liberal guys with more conservative girls. More liberal girls and more conservative guys. On the other hand, I would say most of those guys that might even, let's say, call themselves a Republican would also call themselves, let's say, pro-choice, or could really not really care about some other social issue that is like a big deal outside non-Jewish world or evangelical Christian world, that just isn't a thing. And a guy might be concerned that this girl who's a Democrat isn't pro-Israel, which she is, or these other things, you know, we make a lot of assumptions. I think the bigger thing is in general, not making any assumptions about anyone, really.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think that's a big one. I mean, politics just the nature of the beast of our society right now. It comes up. And for some people, it really is important. I happen to be like uber into politics, and I love it. And it's really important to me. And it's one of the things my husband and I share together. But if you're not one of those people, it doesn't seem like a deal breaker. So,
Yeah, I just see this and it's so beautiful, this overarching theme in how you relate to everyone through matchmaking, that you're really just going into the core and getting into the foundation of, you know, what are our values? How do we connect? And kind of stripping away everything superficial that's unimportant and figuring out first, like, what's inside. I think anyone who wants to and open to do a little inner work should talk to you as a matchmaker, because you're so good at helping people dive into that and explore.
thank you. So I have to give a shout out to one of our new matchmaker who's helped me a lot because she really worked on herself as a single person. So she actually just recommended, it was only I don't know, a month ago or a few weeks ago, this book that's like changed my life. And now I am asking almost all my people to read it. It happens to be written by Jewish psychologists. It's called Attached, and it sold millions of copies. I don't know if you guys will read it. I'm recommending it to you now. I just had a guy I met with. I've been super impressed. So I've brought it up to some of the people I work with, and like 3 of them had already read the book. I was like, wow, you guys are so impressive. I wish I had this book when I was, it's like how people relate to each other. But yeah, I mean, I think, yeah, if you're willing, this process is about doing the work and working on yourself. And like that book, for example, has just given me, like, kind of blown my mind in my own marriage. But I do try to get to the core of what's important, because that's the essence of what I think people are looking for. They're looking for connection. They're looking for connection. And it is sad to me to see so many people struggling, men and women, like at this like cross purposes, that if we could like tweak a few little things of being open about X, Y, and Z, there's lots of other people out there searching for the exact same thing.
Absolutely.
Oh.
Absolutely. What do you think, what's the most rewarding part of all of this for you?
Seeing people like open themselves up and getting also to experience love and connection and yeah, personal growth. So that's on like a personal level. On a Jewish level, it makes me happy. I've again been so impressed by a number of the people, you know, we're here in Denver. There's not tons of Jews. If someone has made a commitment to really try to date Jewish people, that's like awe-inspiring for me. And so I react to that. So that's part of the reason I do this, is like, if somebody's making this effort themselves and reaching out for help, then I'm gonna do my utmost to try to help them. And so then on a Jewish level, to see like, oh wow, we're creating, you know, Jewish families is, I love that. So
Yeah, that's incredible. And really, just so all of our listeners realize, everything that Erin does is volunteer for matchmaking. And it's, I don't know, it's above and beyond. And at the same time, like, for what you put into it. And I'm so happy that it was a good match for us to find you for this, because it is so meaningful, it sounds like, to you. And it's so helpful and meaningful to us as well.
Well, thank you. Thank you. I do. I enjoy it, or I wouldn't do it. And the truth is, I mean, you can see it too. There's some people, it's just like life. There's some people I work with that I connect with more, and they connect with me, and then it's a relationship, and I'm going to put in more time for them because they're putting in the work. And that's just, you know, how life is. But I absolutely find it meaningful. One of the other things I was looking through, you said we kind of came up with some stuff we were going to talk about, which I would love to talk about, and that you brought up, was like handling a match, let's say when it doesn't work out, or the process. I would like to talk about just the process a little bit of, because I've actually been shocked and pleasantly surprised, because again, I almost exclusively work with secular people, and I kind of explained to them what we would call the shidduch, which is like a match in Hebrew process in the Orthodox world of, going out, checking back in with the matchmaker. If it doesn't work out, kind of the matchmaker can help facilitate you guys never having to talk again, and that kind of thing. Where I think the process itself is helpful and takes a lot of stress off of people. One of the horrible things of the apps is because it's not clear when you match on the app that you've actually committed to a date. Then you have this whole weird like texting process where I actually feel very bad for the men, because they've expressed to me that they feel like they need to go through this whole process and not just ask for a date, because they don't want to come across as creepy or pushy or invasive. And so one of the things I explained to them is like, nope, this is different. If the girl said yes here, she agreed to a date. That's what that yes meant. And like, wow, let's take all that ambiguity off the table. It's pretty amazing. So for guys and girls, but especially for men, because I do feel that in our secular society, men get so many mixed signals. 50 years ago, it was absolutely expected that a man was going to call, a man was going to initiate a date. It was socially appropriate in a public setting to go up to a woman and ask her out, and she could say no if she wanted to. And now it's not clear to me that any of those things are expected or necessarily appropriate in the secular world, and it's extremely confusing.
Absolutely. Yeah. And then being a woman in that world also, of like,
It's so hard for the women because like, oh, am I going to come off as desperate? Should I ask him out? But is he going to feel like he's harassing me if he asks me out at a work meeting? You know what I'm saying? Like this whole like minefield of, it's very hard for women too, because ultimately I think it does make us feel special to have a guy initiate. And just so if people aren't on the website and don't know, so the expectation is said, like when you have a match, that the guy will call the girl within 3 days. And that is his responsibility. I actually had to talk to one of my guides about this, because he's like, he was going to close the match and say not got in touch. I was like, what are you talking about? I said, so he's like, she didn't call me. I was like, she has no obligation to call you. You need to call her. And he was like, really? I was like, yeah. And then he did. And I'm not making fun of him, because it's not actually clear outside of the context of our site that that's what actually should happen. And in fact, in the apps, numerous people have told me it is expected that you would text back and forth. And that it's a little weird actually, because I encourage my guys to send like one text saying, when do you want to go out? Not, because I always kind of say texting has a lot to lose and almost nothing to gain, because people can have these hurt feelings and anxiety, and they didn't respond fast enough, and they made a silly joke, but the context didn't come through in the tone of their whatever, all kinds of different things.
yeah. Yeah, I'm so glad you mentioned that. It's just so many people I've talked to, even girls, will tell me, oh, I matched with so-and-so on an app. I'm like, oh, like, did you meet them? How was it? And they say, no, we texted for 3 weeks and that was it. And to me, I'm just like, if only you could have met in person and skipped all of that, you really get to know who the other person is.
That girl didn't feel comfortable to ask for the date, right? Because she thought that was his role, and he didn't want to come on too strong. And then it just kind of petered out, right?
Yeah.
It is sad. I actually will say I've had some people go out from the website that matched on other apps, which can be actually good. Like the person will say, oh, I think I matched with her. I was like, okay, well, let's see if she accepts you. Nothing to lose. But one of the nice things of the process is too, if it doesn't work out after a date, again, my dorky economics speak, one of the things of the Orthodox, system, right? Is we try to say this first date should be like an hour, a coffee date. Actually, I think one great thing of the culture of Denver, I was just talking to a guy about this because he was like, I don't really drink, but it's not like I have an issue or I wasn't a former alcohol. I don't bring it up, but like, I'm not into it. It's not my thing. And I was like, well, you're in the right place because Denver, people like to go take a walk around the park. I've actually been really impressed. A lot of people, for their first date will go walk around Roche Park or these, something super chill, which I think is a great thing of the dating culture of Denver. And then if it doesn't work out, the nice thing of Denver is you literally never have to talk to them again. And another thing I guess I'd like to talk about as far as like changing a mindset, I had someone talk to me because they were a little bit down that like they hadn't been getting past like second dates. And I tried to explain that from my perspective, I actually didn't think that was problematic. So I didn't grow up Orthodox. I dated in the secular world as well. But when I met my husband, I had been dating in the Orthodox system of, matchmakers and setup. And I always tell people I didn't have a second date with anyone until I met my husband, because I would go on a date. I would go on a first date. And by the way, that's a whole separate thing. A girl actually said this to me and I loved it. And I've been telling people, she said, my threshold for a first date is very low and for a relationship is very high. And I was like, I think that's a great attitude. So I'd go on a date with someone. If it was iffy, I'd push myself to go on a second date. But it is true. After that, I think you kind of do know. And that may be also, Rabbi Wolf, where I differ from other matchmakers. If somebody tells me after a couple dates, I was like, okay, And they've actually told me that other people
They push 3, 4.
And I was like, no, I think people do know. I mean, maybe that's my bias because of how I dated. But again, going back to this guy, I was like, why is that a negative? Or why is this some reflection on you that you're not getting past the second date? The point of this process is we don't drag out because we're not here to hang out. We're not. So yeah, okay. Maybe this girl, you would have hung out with her for 3 months, done this and hung out and went to Broncos games, but you would have ended up in the same place because you weren't compatible. So I think it's actually great you only had 2 dates. And then move on and find the next, like you're just making the process more efficient.
Totally. It's not a game where you rack up points. The more dates you go on, it doesn't work that way.
Well, is there if you're taking it personally, is there something wrong with me? No, because if there's not that connection, it's okay. And then we're looking to find that one that is.
Yeah. That's something I actually quote you, Erin, all the time on this, because I love how you bring the business into the dating world in terms of, it just blew my mind when you said this. The faster you get to the no, the faster you can get to a yes.
It's true. If you work in sales, everybody says the second best answer is no, right? So I did sales and you're cold calling, you're trying to get the person and you get their secretary and you just, right? And you wasted 3 weeks and then finally talk to the guy and then he tells you no. I really wish I would have had that. And that it's true. That is the exact same thing of, okay, we didn't get past the second date. Okay, great. Now we
move on.
Energy elsewhere.
Yeah.
You might have alluded to this, but I'm curious that you did say, you're talking to someone who was down, and I found in my limited matchmaking I've done, I found a lot of people who are down, a lot of people really, because as you said, it's so confusing. It's stressful. It's frustrating. You feel like you're banging your head against the wall. So much ambiguity. What would you tell someone who's listening to encourage them, to lift them up? Someone who's feeling despondent. What words of wisdom could you share with them?
So the first thing I would say is if as much as possible, and I know it's hard, to step outside yourself. So I try to do this all the time in my life, and it enables me to get along with people who are very different than me. Did any of this have to do with me? And because I think people take things personally. So for example, this person saying not getting past the second date. So the ability to objectively look at the situation. So I'll give you this example. Let's say, a guy who's down, or girls too, both sides. People feel down when they get a decline. They don't think for a second about that other person that they declined. Right? So I just try to say, that girl or guy you declined, you didn't think they were bad. You didn't think there was anything wrong with them. You didn't mean to hurt their feelings. And that person that declined you also didn't. So that I think is just it's hard because our emotions are raw. And I definitely cry. I was just telling someone else this week because I was feeling his pain a little bit. And I was like, it's so hard. I was trying to encourage him. And I was like, I literally remember and this is over 20 years because I've been married a long time, like the tears I shed when a date didn't work out. And I was like, your hopes were pinned and you really like that person. But again, and that's actually something amazing that the attachment book talks about, because it talks about having the strength to communicate your needs, even if it might end up breaking up your relationship, but it's actually better because then you can stop wasting time with that person to date someone who can make you feel secure. That, it's hard to make ourselves feel vulnerable. And then the other thing I would just say is, it sounds trite, but it's mind blowing. Like, it really does only take one. And if like all these dates worked out, like that wouldn't make any sense in the scheme of the world. Right? Like, because not to say there aren't lots of different people that could be your partner, because I do believe there are, it's not this magical one, but it really does just take one. Or I am also honest, Rabbi Wolf. This person I was talking to this week was being very, kind of vulnerable and said, I'm not sure that I can really see a partner truly wanting to commit to me as I am. And I said to that person, you're right. As you are right now, with certain behaviors you have and insecurities, but you're working so hard on yourself. Absolutely, someone is. A slightly more secure you, a slightly more confident you, absolutely. Of course, someone's going to fall over their feet for you. I do try to be honest, right? Like, yeah, if you're being insecure and anxious and engaging in behavior that sabotages your relationship, you are correct. Yes. No one healthy is going to commit to that. So we gotta, let's work on that, with love and respect. And so.
Yeah. And that's something that I really think that this whole matchmaking model, because there's a matchmaker, because you're this in between in the relationship in the beginning, but also guiding each person along the way that you deal with it, that whole aspect gets skipped in the dating apps. You come as you are, there's no background, there's no growth, there's no perspective or bigger picture, but because you're able to have those candid conversations and help each individual grow and shine as their best selves, it opens up the dating world, I think, for everyone you're working with, that all of a sudden there's so many more amazing candidates.
It's absolutely true. And I actually tell people, so this is just taking a step back. So the two matches that I made where the people got married and both sides were Orthodox. And so there were absolutely stages in that where I'm not trying to like blow my horn or say something, but like relationships are very fragile, where I think I did help there was miscommunication. Again, everyone's feeling so insecure. So our role and the thing the dating apps don't have, again, you talk about that girl, the 3 weeks, texting. So I texted the guy, hey, what, did you go out yet? No, I'm still texting her. I was like, okay, stop right now and send her one more text of when you're, and they did, and they went out. And so you don't have that help where I think the matchmakers can help. And I'm not blaming anyone because again, our society is so confusing. But I do tell people, I mean, this is something you could talk about later or just whatever, but I do always say like a relationship when it's first starting is like this teeny little, like when your kid brings home like the seed they planted in the plastic cup, and then that little plant like is coming out of the ground, and how vulnerable it is. That's what I feel like the first few dates and relationships are. And it's part of the reason, again, why I would advise people not to become physically intimate in those first few dates, is because, again, it just all you're doing is adding more insecurity to like an insecure fire. So again, nothing to do from any moral perspective. And I tell people, making a great profile and this and searching and being open to a match. They're like finding and getting a match and nurturing a relationship are two totally separate, discrete skills, and they don't necessarily overlap.
Yeah, and
So
what you're saying, I think it corroborates what Rabbi Bernath had told us early on when we first started. I thought matchmaking meant, as a matchmaker, I click send match to each party, and hopefully they accept because I did my research and homework and I talked to them. But he said that's like maybe 10% of it. I think like 90% is what you're describing, that you're helping that budding plant blossom into something more rich and beautiful. So.
right. And that's something I will bring up because it comes up all the time in Denver. People's hesitancy to do long distance dating. And they're not wrong. It's harder. The way I describe it is slightly uncomfortable, totally inorganic, yet absolutely works. So I find that takes a little more negotiating, and I don't even know. I think I've talked to you about it, especially certain things, assumptions I was taking, let's say from the Orthodox perspective of, when is it time to go meet someone? And then in the secular world, some girls have expressed to me, and I didn't even realize they were worried about it. Expectations, like how do we talk about that? This is something I've helped facilitate to make everyone feel, more comfortable. What does it mean when a guy flies in to visit? That kind of thing. Again, I'm not interested in getting anybody's business at all, like really not, or being a policewoman. But my interest is to make people feel as secure as possible with the actual facts. So
Beautiful.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Just that long distance piece. I just think that's so important. Just to touch on that for another minute. You said it's less organic. It's like it's more tricky and it's hard to navigate, but sometimes it works. I don't know. Can you just speak to, I feel like there's so many people who are scared to date long distance, or what's your advice for that?
So it is harder. And what I tell people is, for myself as a matchmaker, so I tell them, if I send you a date in Denver, again, we have a smaller pool of people. If somebody's remotely a match within Denver, I'm going to send it to you and literally say, probably on my note, this guy, girl matches on XYZ. I have no idea if they're a match. I don't know if you'll find them attractive. I'm sending them to you because you can decide if it's worth an hour of your time. For a match that's long distance, I really would try to find someone who's a match, on their, in Hebrew, we say hashkafa, which means worldview, but for people that can be politics and how active they are and, all different kinds of things. So the difference there, I think, is, I joke again about economics, like the costs of the date is a lot higher, meaning the threshold of how much you match definitely needs to be higher for someone to fly in to meet someone. Because there are actual physical and economic costs to it and emotional, right? Of putting yourself out there for 3 days or 2 days. And that's a commitment and a little bit scary and all these different things. But it can be navigated. I'm just dealing with this. I'm actually going to probably have to call one of my people, if not today or tomorrow, to talk about, we've talked about it. You've actually guided me because I knew there were kind of rules of thumb in the Orthodox world, but since I wasn't in that world for a long time dating, I didn't know what they were. And you had said, if people have 3 good FaceTimes, then probably someone should come out to visit. It's interestingly enough, in my 2 long distance, very serious relationships that I've helped build in the past few months, they actually flew out before that on their own.
Wow.
Because they felt the connection. And it wasn't actually, both times it wasn't the guy. The girl was willing to do it. And I was actually so impressed that they, because I don't know, again, we talk about how other people perceive things and worrying about what other people think. I'll be totally honest. If I was that 20-something girl, even if I really like the guy, I'd be again, it's irrelevant and it's unhealthy, but would I have gone to fly out for the guy just because my job, it was easier and I had points and this and that? And I don't know, because my ego would have said, I don't want people saying, oh, she flew out for him. He didn't come for her. But I give these girls credit because it is irrelevant. It absolutely made sense for the girl to come just because of logistics, right? And I give them a lot of credit for that. But so that's one of those things, like when do you come now in a relationship, getting into how often, especially if it hasn't, again, there's no standard. These people don't know what should be the goal. So you told me, and I'm going to express this to one of my daters, that you cannot wait more than a month. It can't go more than a month of you guys seeing each other. But I would advise, if possible, it should be even more than that, if possible, you know.
Yeah, in between dates, once they meet for the first time.
Meet for the first time, to physically see each other and spend time together. Because you're building this, again, this very vulnerable relationship.
Yeah, amazing, amazing. This is all such good, not just nuggets of wisdom. These are like foundations. What's just one last thing that you would just want everyone to know?
I mean, I think the thing I would just say, again, not discounting ever your core values or your need for physical attraction, because they are super important. They are super important, and I'll never discount that. The most open you can possibly be, it's only gonna bring things to you in life. I mean, forget matchmaking, right? In business, in everything. So the specifics of that in matchmaking, though, would be the most open you can possibly be about age, about education, about, and I would like to bring that up because I always say, like, I think about, like, because people tell me, Erin, would you really have dated a guy that hadn't gone to college? I'm like, yeah, I mean, Mark Zuckerberg didn't graduate from college, right? I mean, so yes, make that a yes, right? Again, is that an exception to a rule? But you know what? Those exceptions are sometimes how you find, again, these gems. So that's the one thing I would just say, again, age, job, education, things that aren't your core values or core attractiveness, just the most open you can be is only going to bring good things to your life.
I love that. Yeah, and I've thought a lot about these concepts recently, just in life, as you said, just business wise, financially, spiritually, to be open minded and to expect good things coming. You're going to open yourself up, and you have the expectation, that you're anticipating good things coming. And I think it will.
And that energy that someone can then put off attracts
For sure.
the other person.
People can tell when you're open, and they respond to it.
Yeah, beautiful. Beautiful. Honestly, yeah, there's so much more to uncover. I know the hour is getting a little late here. You mentioned growing up, in these army bases. Like that'd be a whole nother thing.
Right.
Maybe I'll ask you offline
That's
about.
part of the reason, like, people say, like, wow, Erin, I do happen to have an extremely diverse group of friends, like religiously, culture-wise, countries, and I do love all kinds of people. Like, I definitely, my childhood and moving every couple of years and just having to make new friends. Again, this would be taking something good from something that was hard.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, like there's so much I have to ask you offline just about what that was like in all the places you've been. And you mentioned credit card points, and I remember one time you said, like a girl travels on credit. I remember one time in some icebreaker thing where you had to share some unique thing about you that no one knows. I think you happen to be an expert. You said you're an expert in credit card points, and we'll have to cover an episode on that, like how to work the system.
That's my other uber dorky hobby. But for me, I love it. That's something you have to love, but I'm happy to help. It does make people sad. I actually was joking with some guy was dating someone, and he was like, okay, I'm gonna take I'm getting my tax refund, and I'm gonna put it aside to travel to see this girl. And I was like, no, you're not, because it's gonna be free.
It's an added bonus with you as the matchmaker. You can
Exactly.
game the system. Yeah, that's great.
That's amazing. And what a beautiful lesson, I think, just to leave off with, of you personally and how you took those challenging times in your life, and to see how that really built you into being able to do all these things that you're doing today, and how it's not a victim mentality at all. It's exactly the opposite, that you grew from it and you're giving to the world in this beautiful, unique way that only you can do with your experiences.
Thank you.
Yeah. So
Truly my pleasure.
we really appreciate your time, your very valuable time. You're doing so much all the time. And that's what they say. When you need something done, ask like the most successful, busy person you can think of and you'll get it done. So that's our motto in working with you. We thank you.
Oh, thank you. Thank
We
you.
thank you. We thank you for all you do. And yeah, we really appreciate your time. And thanks again for everything.
Okay, my pleasure. Well, I'll catch you guys later.
We'll do. We'll talk soon. Thanks so much. All the best.